Make the cry like a ninja block on prom night.
She distressed, that's the way that I get things done. If I'm not under pressure, then I sleep too long and I hang around like a bomb. I think I'm going nowhere and that makes me nervous. Everybody's at the game, but I feel alright. Everybody's at the game, but I feel alright. Everybody's at the game, but I feel alright. Everybody's thinking about me, but I feel alright. Everybody's at the game, but I feel alright.
Today's Jimquisition touches on some heavy issues, and I'm not just saying that because I'm fucking fat. Haha! Self-deprecating humour, which is very hard for me to do because I'm so great. But on to serious topics. Although today's video is as energetic and lively as ever, it does touch on some, as I say, heavy moments. It's talking about Mike Forgey, who passed away after a battle with what I like to call fucking cancer, because I, well, hate cancer. Who doesn't? That's not a controversial statement. But before we continue, I should say I in no way represent Mike Forgey's family. I in no way represent people who battle cancer. This is just my read on a situation that has gotten a little bit contentious, and hopefully I can do so with tact and grace. The end of my stick fell off. I mean, it's just a rubber stop. You just twist it on and there we go. It's fine, but it dropped off while I was recording, and that was distracting. For today's episode, I will be replacing the links that I normally put in the video description and on the website, the links that go to my Patreon page and the Jimquisition.com. I'll be using that space for links to certain cancer charities, ones that I think might be worth your time and hopefully your money. I'll also put a link to the donation page for Mike Forgey's family and making a contribution myself. With that out of the way, let's get on with the episode. Also, fuck Warner Brothers Interactive, I cannot say that enough. Shadow of War is apparently the gift that keeps on giving. If you're somebody like me whose primary job is to call out asshole games published by assholes for reasons of unfettered assholery. If you're, say, anybody else, you might find that it's not so generous. Thanks to Warner Brothers Interactive, perhaps the slimiest corporation in an industry full to the brim with pond scum, Shadow of War has successfully transitioned from promising, highly anticipated sequel to a veritable exemplar of game industry greed that looks like a worse and worse deal for the customer the more we find out about it. As with any AAA game, it was bad enough that it indulged in all the usual crap that clutters and saturates any major release. The obligatory season passes, pre-order bonuses, DLC carvery that Warner Brothers trashes all its games with now. It was bad enough when Shadow of War went fee to pay, putting microtransactions in a $60 game the moment its Middle-earth series was proven capable of getting away with it. It was bad enough when said microtransactions turned out to be unjustifiable loot boxes, glorified gambling in a single-player game that went far beyond the usual just cosmetic excuse and includes goddamn orcs of all things. Load of pay-to-win bullshit. It was bad enough when said loot boxes partnered with Totino's to marry gambling and pizza rolls in a tasty display of tastelessness. Having thoroughly and publicly stripped Middle-earth of its dignity, Warner Brothers and Shadow of War had a chance to do something right, something tactful, something with a degree of human decency, and they managed to fuck that up as well. In 2016, executive producer for Shadow of War, Michael Forgey, passed away thanks to fucking cancer. Known as Forthog, Michael was said to be beloved by Monolith, who stated he was a great friend, unafraid to jump into things and pull their game out of trouble whenever he was needed. As a means of paying tribute to their fallen friend, Monolith introduced a new character to Shadow of War, fittingly named Forthog the Orc Slayer. Like his namesake, Forthog 2 is unafraid to jump into things and pull players out of trouble. Likened to Fallout's mysterious stranger, the friendly Uruk has a chance to show up when Talion needs him most, slaughtering troublesome enemies before cavorting off to do his own thing. It's a cute idea, and it seems to be a well thought out and ultimately sincere tribute to a much respected developer. In any other world, that would be that, an in-game tribute to a fallen comrade, something touching but fun, the perfect send-off for somebody involved in entertainment. However, This is not any other world. This is the world of AAA video games, where the likes of EA, Activision, and of course Warner Brothers Interactive hold court. So it is that this tribute comes not as an in-game Easter egg, unlockable, or background event, but a priced-out, full-bore, launch day piece of DLC, where you'll be honouring a dead man by giving Warner Brothers Interactive $5. Warthog Orc Slayer costs $5 and will be available for purchase the day and date of Shadow of War's release. The natural discussion arising from this is the question of charging money for something that tributes the death of a colleague and friend. The move was seen by some as a cash-in, exploiting the loss of somebody to tragic disease so Warner Brothers can make a quick buck. It's a tempting portrayal, but it's a portrayal that can't be painted with elegant brushstrokes, and the results are often ugly. I'm reminded of the response some people had for That Dragon Cancer. If you're unaware, That Dragon was a game based on the very real loss of the development team's son. A game about a young boy who lost his life, Joel, and the parents who loved him. Whatever one thinks of the game, there really shouldn't be a dispute over the sincerity of those who made it. The parents themselves, whose inspiring interviews and speeches are soaked in an almost tangible love. Unfortunately for them, they made the perfectly acceptable decision to charge for the game, but were attacked by several parties for allegedly cashing the check on their son. While no different from any book or movie based on real events, the fact this was a video game gave some license to demand it for free. I won't repeat some of the vile things I saw written about Ryan and Amy Green, the parents of Joel, but they were some of the most disgusting things I've read doing my job, and that's saying a fucking lot. It is obvious to most decent thinking people that money was not the motivator for That Dragon Cancer, but that when you're making a video game for years, pouring your life and your money into it, it's not exactly unfair to charge a sum for it. Now, the circumstances surrounding Shadow of War are quite different, but it's important to compare the two games as both a part of a wider conversation on a topic that cannot be handled with enough care. To barrel in with accusations here, as some did with That Dragon Cancer, may very well twist one's righteousness into unfair callousness, and I urge my viewers to employ discretion when discussing this. With that in mind, I have very little doubt that at least the nucleus of Monolith's DLC, the basic idea, comes from a genuinely good place, an honest place, motivated by a desire to truly honour somebody who was loved. From there, however, there are certain modifiers that wholly change the context. The first modifier is the company involved. The news of this DLC comes after a conga line of fuckery on behalf of Warner Brothers Interactive. Like I said, the game started off as an exciting and anticipated sequel to an adored game, but through rampant unchecked corporate avarice, every revelation about the title has brought more things to be disgusted at. It's understandable then if one hears about paid launch day DLC based on a dead person and wants to be sick into a little fucking bag. Based on WB's prior behaviour, how is it not reasonable to assume this is a distasteful attempt to make cynical coin off of sincere sentiment? It's what Warner Brothers would do. They've actually done worse. Naturally, Warner Brothers already had the answer to this, and it's an answer we've seen corporations utilise every time there's a chance they might be called out on how they make their money. They're donating it to charity. However, while many sites reporting on the story took it all at face value and bought that it was a nice gesture, others were not immediately convinced. First of all, it's crucial to note that the full $5 doesn't go to charity. While $3.50 of each purchase will go there, the other 30% is held back, presumably to pay platform holders like Steam. Platform holders taking a cut of content sold. More importantly, Games Talking Bloke Total Biscuit pointed out that this is only true in the United States. And even then, only some of the United States. Outside of the US, no money spent will go towards charity, and if you purchase Warthog the Orc Slayer in Alabama, Hawaii, Illinois, Massachusetts, Mississippi, and South Carolina, you're presumably giving all your cash to the publisher as well. This can all be found in the small print, for those who care to look, which, let's face it, is a tiny amount of people. So, as a resident of Bumblefuck, Mississippi, there is no way my purchasing of this content will help anybody but Warner Brothers Interactive, which is about as attractive a prospect as buying a big rusty nail to skewer my penis and one of my testicles with, all skewered through on the one nail. I mean, I could probably get both balls and the knob on one stick, but that'd be uncomfortable to maneuver. At any rate, once this part of the story broke, many more were convinced this was a slime bag move. Perhaps one of the slime baggiest moves the industry's ever seen, which, again, is saying a lot. The reasons for this may be because of how certain states deal with charity. Some of them require special registration if you wish to make sales with partial donations. If that is the reason, and we can only theorise at this point, it means that Warner Brothers couldn't be fucked to register. It apparently happens quite a bit. With all this in mind, I don't think this is the slimiest thing that's happened in the game industry, not by a long shot. But whatever the reasoning, and however slimy it is, one has to ask why this has been charged for in the first place. Why make it $5 DLC? Another dramatic difference between this situation and that Dragon Cancer is that Monolith is not a tiny team of family members putting their entire lives into Fort Hog the Orc Slayer. They're a team making a near guaranteed success of a so-called AAA game backed by one of the wealthiest and dirtiest companies around. And they didn't make a whole game to honor the executive producer, they made a character model that costs $5 out of habit. Let's call it what it is. It's being priced because of habit. Because extra content should be DLC, and DLC should almost always cost money. Thus it is spaken, thus it shall ever be'n. Publishers are masterless dogs who know all the tricks they'll ever care to learn, and things like this are the result. As we discussed in our episode The Joy-Killing Culture of AAA Games, it seems that games in the big publisher sphere charge for things not out of a sense of propriety, but out of loyalty to the way things have always been done. Just like We Happy Few transformed into a season pass boasting, pre-order culture embracing, $60 AAA game when picked up by Gearbox, so too does a good-hearted tribute to a friend and colleague become paid launch day DLC under the watchful eye of WB Interactive. Quite unlike that Dragon Cancer, there really is no noble way of explaining the decision to charge for this. But some money goes to charity will be a defense. But those tax-deductible donations could have been made directly to, say, Michael Forgey's own fucking family. They have a donation page. WB could have offered to price match in charitable donations any purchases made in those exempt states. That's something Total Biscuit suggested. That would have cost them practically fucking nothing and gained only good PR. That's one of the reasons for charitable donations being such a clear go-to answer for corporations. They look good, it costs almost fucking nothing for them. Instead of taking those two and several other good suggestions, they made a move that has generated rather bad PR, and while I honestly don't think greed was the purpose of even WB here, their rigid adherence to the AAA blueprint fucked them. It fucked them, Monolith, and somebody's memory. Warner Brothers Interactive should have known better. If nothing else, it should have had the awareness to consider its own involvement and whether or not that would be an overshadowing factor, which it has been because everything WB touches turns to pus-soaked decay, and its reputation for slimebag moves precedes it, quite justifiably. There is no way Wubble Bubbles Interactive was charging for this and not raising eyebrows of deep suspicion. But then, lacking in self-awareness to the point of disastrous public relations is such a common habit among major publishers that I'm impressed the unscrupulous bastards stay successful. Wonga Borkers lacks that self-awareness, and that's why many people are calling this latest move disgusting, even when it's far from the worst thing to happen in the game industry and not even among the shittiest things WB itself has ever done. You may very well think Warner Brothers was altruistic here. You may very well think they could easily have done nothing, and what they did is better than nothing. Whatever you think, I contest that because of the company they are, the game they're publishing, and the decreased reputation both have had during Shadow of War's development, they ought to have known better than to whack $5 on the thing and trigger an inevitable, predictable, downright fucking obvious backlash. This was not better than nothing. Nothing would have been less insulting in the long run. Well, that's that done anyway, thank God for me and all that. God, doing this one deflated me, and I'm not making another fat joke. I'm gonna have to end the video on dancing. Dancing is the only thing that can cheer me up now. Yes. High quality, professional dancing.
Come to me, 'cause of me.